even leaving to go to New York, that was different. There was no job. I just knew that I wanted to leave Memphis and I wanted to go to New York. Of course, I had people like you in my corner saying, hey, do it. This is the time to do it. Go for it. And then there were other people who were skeptical and saying like, well, what are you going to do when you get there? Like, New York is expensive or New York is dangerous, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And I think that is an obstacle too, when you know something deep down in your heart on what you're supposed to do. You know that God has you and you have to take that leap of faith. And that's exactly what it was. And to other people, it may look scattered. It may look irresponsible to some. It may look real crazy, but your journey is yours. And so that was something that I had to overcome, was like not really caring about what other people thought about my journey.
I'm back with another edition of So What Success Stories. And today I am excited to be talking to my friend, my soror, my mentee, my employee, former employee, Ciara Arrington. Ciara Arrington. I am super excited to be talking to Ciara because I have been able to be a witness to and a little bit of a part of her journey, from being a college student to becoming this incredible world traveling entrepreneur, jet setting woman. It has been beautiful to watch. So Ciara has started her own company. She is a liquid therapist, and her beautiful brand is Never Drink Alone. Follow her on Instagram. Just some really, really cool stuff. So Ciara, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Summer. This is like full circle in a sense. Have been with you since 2012, I think it's been.
I don't remember what year. It's been a minute. Almost 10 years, huh?
Yeah, almost 10 years. So super grateful to be a part of your journey as well. And love what you're doing with these stories. But yeah, I am Ciara Arrington, liquid therapist, bartender for Never Drink Alone. I started Never Drink Alone last April during the pandemic. I was furloughed for my bartending job, and I still wanted a way to connect with guests and also make some delicious drinks. And so I decided every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, I would make a drink. And I'll also have a special guest on talking about their passions, what they do and who they do it for. And so starting with that has led me to doing like private classes. I did the event with the University of Memphis for their mixer, some other corporate gigs. So it is still expanding, it is still flowing, and I'm super grateful for it. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
It is just the beginning. It is totally just the beginning. You have the talent, the skill, and the personality, and the work ethic to do and accomplish anything that you set your mind to. And I'm glad that you found this lane, chosen this lane, and it fits you perfectly. I still remember I was speaking at an event at the University of Memphis, and you came up to me. I think we had met before, sort of informally, but you came up to me and you were telling me that you were graduating and your degree was in marketing. And you were looking for some experience. And I was like, well, you want to work for me for no money?
Yep.
And you raised your hand and you said you would, and you did work for me for no money. And then you worked for me for a little bit of money. And you really helped me when I was on the ground floor of what I'm doing. And I'll be forever, forever grateful to you for that, Ciara. You helped me then, and you've helped me for a long, long time. And I'm just super, super proud of you for who you are and the woman that you've become and what you've contributed to. So what? So thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
You. And I'm super excited about the journey ahead for you too. So let's jump into these questions, because I know you are about to encourage and inspire a whole lot of people. So in this program, I have what I call the So What Success system. And that's when people can learn how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices, they can achieve so what success, and that is success in spite of any obstacles they face. And Ciara, you are a so what woman. I know you, my little sister. Some of the challenges that you have had, and like I said, I see you smiling, and I know a little bit of your journey, and I'm really, really grateful. So you are a so what woman. So let's tell your story. First, talk about a few of the obstacles that you've had to overcome and how you've overcome those obstacles to be the woman that you are today.
Ooh, where to begin? One thing that I've had to learn in this journey is that your story is not going to look like everyone else's, and to not discredit yourself or belittle yourself about or comparison to the other obstacles that other people have faced, which is something I almost did just now. Was like, well, I ain't barely been through a lot of stuff, and then when I begin to tell my story, it's kind of like, but you have,
Right.
um, but you have. I would say starting from even leaving to go to New York, that was different. There was no job. I just knew that I wanted to leave Memphis and I wanted to go to New York. Of course, I had people like you in my corner saying, hey, do it. This is the time to do it. Go for it. And then there were other people who were skeptical and saying, like, well, what are you going to do when you get there? Like, New York is expensive or New York is dangerous, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And I think that is an obstacle, too, when you know something deep down in your heart on what you're supposed to do. You know that God has you and you have to take that leap of faith. And that's exactly what it was. And to other people, it may look scattered. It may look irresponsible to some. It may look real crazy, but your journey is yours. And so that was something that I had to overcome, was like not really caring about what other people thought about my journey, because it was mine and it was mine to discover, and it was something that God told me to do, and so I had to be obedient and do it. So that's one of them
I
of
love it. And I think
overcoming.
that's a really, really good one. So far, you made the point about comparing your obstacles to someone else's, and I think we all will do this, like, oh well, I haven't really been through much, and or or to think that, okay, they've been through, and I mean, they've been through so much more than me. I don't even compare. And I'm glad you made that point, because we all have our obstacles, we all have challenges, and then we all have our own different levels of capacity to deal with the challenges,
Exactly.
whatever they are. So what might be small to you may be big to someone else. And we can't compare, because comparison is the enemy of greatness anyway. And I've
Exactly.
always believed that. But Ciara, yes, and I remember when you made the journey to New York, and I was
I,
one of those pushing you, just go.
yeah,
Um,
I booked the ticket at our meeting, at our weekly meetings. I was like, oh, I saw this ticket for this day. And he was like, we're not starting our meeting until you book it. And I was like, this is real. It made it real. But I needed that, not necessarily someone telling me what to do, but giving me that push or the encouragement of just saying,
to do what you
you
already
can
wanted
do,
to do. Yes.
yeah. And you can do this. Like you're more than capable of doing this. Like I believe in you. I see you. So go out there and do it. And the beautiful thing is that I could always go back.
Exactly.
And that's what I loved about it, which made me strive, to do even more, was that I know that I can go back. And I know everyone doesn't have that. So I'm super grateful for that opportunity was, if you need to, you can always come back. So
Yeah. I've just been and I guess too, even with me pushing you that day, it was me a little bit living vicariously through you. I'm like, look, you don't have a relationship that's holding you here. You don't have children you don't even have a job that's holding you here. Go and explore life. And I think that's great advice, honestly, for any and everybody who has the freedom and the flexibility to do it. Don't let anything hold you back, and just go and give it a try. Give it a try. And what's the worst that can happen is you don't like it, you don't find a job, you have to come back, you have to start over. You
yeah,
give it a try. And I actually had the same idea, just even when we going into entrepreneurship. But yes, I applaud you. So that's a major obstacle that you've overcome. and one that could have held you back and kept you from doing all the great things that you're doing now and all the great experiences that you've had since you booked that flight to New York.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that is awesome. So the next part of the SOA success system is about eliminating excuses, getting rid of the excuses. We all have obstacles, we all have challenges, and we can all make excuses why we don't overcome those. Talk about some of the excuses that you've had to eliminate to get to where you are today.
I mean, the biggest one is fear, right? Like talking yourself out of things. For me with New York, it was hearing all of the feedback of what could go wrong and then almost believing like, well, dang, like, are they right? Like, could this go wrong? And then finally just quieting the noise and being like, no, let me just go. Let me just go and see for myself. Another one, I would say, as far as eliminating the excuses, not knowing enough, I think sometimes holds us back, especially as entrepreneurs. Like, I don't know everything about starting a business, although I do have a business degree. I have been surrounded by entrepreneurs, and even, read books and listened to podcasts and stuff like that. It is
that's a whole other game.
Unknown. The fear of the unknown. And so that's one big thing for me, is that if it's not perfect, I don't want to do it, or I'm not going to do it until it's perfect. And I've had to talk myself out of that as well, and deal with that, is that you just have to start. That is the biggest thing.
No, I love it. And you said fear, and you said and not knowing enough. And then you did what I already did in my mind, was combine the two. Because in a lot of cases, it is when you don't know enough, then you're afraid. And so you did exactly what I advise people to do anyway. If you don't know, there's a way to take care of that. Just get informed. Get information. And a lot of times that will help to alleviate that fear and help get rid of that excuse. So I think that is awesome. I think that's awesome. And I'm like you. I have 2 business degrees. I have an MBA, I have a BBA and an MBA. And then I became an entrepreneur, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And of course, our degrees have helped us. They definitely have helped me. But entrepreneurship is a whole other ball game. And so
it is.
I applaud you for making that jump and that leap and going into that and getting rid of the excuses not to do it, and the comfort of just doing what's the path that most people have, right? Go work a job, work a job, and nothing against anybody who does it. I had a career for 15 years working for someone, and it was the best thing I could have ever done to help prepare me to be an entrepreneur, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think that is always the safety net of things, at least how I look at it, right? Like, I did work in corporate for a little bit, and then left corporate and decided to start bartending, right? And I always enjoyed it because my parents always had like people over, and like my family being over, and there was always 2 consistent things: great food and great drinks for them. And you just saw the bond and the love and the connection with that. And I had always, been drawn to that. And so I was like, well, let me just try bartending. I was a little over corporate, right? As we all get a little burnout, of course. And so I was like, well, let me do something else where I don't have to come back from vacation and think about emails. I can go on vacation and come back to bartending and, connect with guests and make great drinks. And so through bartending, I was like, maybe I won't go back to corporate, but how can I make this my own? And so that's how Never Drink Alone was started. And then I left bartending job and decided to do Never Drink Alone full time, which a lot of people would be like, you are crazy. Like, what are you doing? And it does, on the outside looking in, it probably does look a little scattered, right? But hopefully people know, if you know me, you know that things are, although it may seem spontaneous, I am calculated. I am calculated with what I do.
Well, from my perspective, outside perspective looking in, it doesn't look scattered at all. It looks awesome and amazing. It looks it looks like you are pursuing your dreams, that you're living your life. And with the way the world is set up now, with technology and social media, it's a beautiful thing that you're taking advantage of the opportunity to get your message out, do what's fun for you, and help other people. And I know you really, really expanded it during the pandemic. You know, we talked, of course, throughout all of that, when people were down and people were depressed and they needed pick me up. Yeah, a lot of people were drinking. But
A lot of people were drinking.
you were having fun making these drinks and showing other people how to do it. But it's not just about the drinking. It's like you said, about the community, whether it's a virtual community because of COVID, or in-person community. So, Ciara, so even with all of that, you've made a lot of choices in your life, and that's the third element. A third component of the SOA success system is calculating choices. And so I've watched you make a lot of very calculated, not sporadic, not scattered. I've watched you make a lot of calculated choices in your life. And one most recently, or not even most recently, until I just learned some new things about you today. But more recently, the choice to leave Memphis again and move to DC. So that was a calculated choice, and that's when you really, I saw, start to expand your business, your Never Drink Alone platform even more. Talk about that, or any other calculated choices that you had to make to become the one that you are and to live the life that you're living right now.
Okay, so I will. This is so what I will be as vulnerable and tell, speak my truth, and I have no problem with being authentic. So I'm going to take you on a journey. So
yes, let's go.
I decided to leave New York in January 2019. I originally planned to leave New York for 6 months back in August 2018, to go spend time with my family that had just moved to Houston. I hadn't been around them for like the 4 or 5 years that I was in New York. And so I was like, this will be a good time. I was working from home at the time, and decided, okay, I'm gonna go stay with my folks, save up some money, and then really get a place that I really, loved in New York City. Because if you live in New York, you know that it is pretty expensive, right? So made that decision, I think June 2018, that I would leave August 2018 to go spend 6 months with my parents. Well, I was in a relationship at the time. He didn't want to see me go. And then I found another job, more so in the event planning field. And so I was like, okay, maybe it's meant for me to stay. Like, maybe I shouldn't go. That was a lie. It was a lie.
More lessons to learn, that's all.
So in my disobedience, I stayed in New York City, ended up moving in with the guy that I was in a relationship with. And I end up like everything that could go wrong went wrong. I end up like developing like some health issues. The job was not panning out the way that I thought it was going to be, based off of the interviews that I was on. It was in Jersey City instead of in New York City. And so the commute alone, and then it was beginning to be winter time. Like it ended up going downhill. So I think December came, I had a therapy session with my therapist. And so we were talking, we were doing a little bit of role playing, me discussing my needs and wants from the relationship. But not only that, like just vocalizing my needs and wants in all aspects of my life, because unfortunately that was something that I did not do beforehand. And so I left that therapy session confident, went and expressed my needs and wants. That was a Saturday. My therapist called me on a Monday just to check in, see how things went. And I was like, oh, we're not together no more. And by the way, I'm moving to Houston. And she was like, wait a minute, like, what is happening? So I left for Houston January 2019. Was still working my corporate job. They allowed me to work from home. But again, it just wasn't panning out because it's in the event space. And so you kind of need to be there. And so I was like, this isn't working out. This isn't beneficial to y'all nor to me. And so I'm going to help you train someone else that can be in office. So I left that corporate job in May of 2019. And that's when I was like, okay, I don't want to go back to corporate. I'm going to start bartending. So I went to bartending school, even though I had some experience in bartending. I wanted a more like in-depth knowledge of what I was doing, and so went to bartending school and then started bartending at a restaurant in Houston. That was around the corner from my parents' house. Well, fast forward to March 2020. Of course, the
And the
pandemic
world
hits.
changed.
The world stops, right? We are now in the house. Like you said, a lot of people were drinking. I was one of them. I won't bring my family into it. I was one of them. That's my story. But after we realized we weren't just going to be in the house for 2 to 3 weeks, like everyone thought, it was like, okay, we got to slow down. And I was like, well, dang, like my parents were still working, my sister was still working, and I was just like, all right, what am I going to do? And so I had a dream about Never Drink Alone, where I would get on Instagram Live. A lot of people were starting to get on Instagram Live then. And I was like, I'm still going to make a cocktail. I'm going to teach people how to make cocktails since they are drinking at the house instead of just taking shots. Like, here is a way to make you a delicious beverage that is balanced, that tastes good. And it, just gives you something else in your repertoire. And then I was like, well, I still want to connect with people. And so I started bringing on special guests and talking about their passions and, what they do and who they do it for. And that really helped me throughout the pandemic. Is I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and talking to people who had to pivot. Everyone pretty much, you're a speaker, you go into colleges, universities, corporations in person, and that changed for everyone. And so having to pivot like that, and that's how Never Drink Alone was born, is because I had to pivot. And so that was, again, a calculated choice, right? To not kind of like worry myself down of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Okay, this is something that you love doing. You love talking to people and hearing their stories. Like, if money if money didn't exist, like, what would I do with my time? And that is travel the world, taste delicious drinks, and talk to people all over the world. That's something that I would do. And so, yeah, that's what I did with Never Drink Alone. I pivot, and I've seen so many people pivot, and I wanted to get their stories out too. Exactly what you're doing with So What Success Stories, for people to hear about other people's journeys and how it doesn't have to look one way. And I think that's so important. I think that sometimes when we are in college and we're like, all right, we got to get a corporate job, and then the 401k, and like, okay, we get married, okay, 2 kids, buy this house and stuff like that. And so I started taking a hard look at what I wanted my life to look like. And in therapy sessions, I was like, I was redefining everything. I was unlearning everything, redefining what love looked like, what success looked like for me. And it did not look the way that I was accustomed to it looking. Like, my life and the way that everyone else expected my life to look, or how maybe back then I expected my life to look, didn't compare. And so I was like, well, I only get one of these. Let me do what I love to do and have no regrets about it. So,
I think that is awesome, Ciara. And I'm so, like I said, I'm so glad to have been a part of that journey and to have witnessed you on that journey, and to be quite honest, learn from you on your journey myself, because, just like you, I saw success as one way initially. Go to college, graduate, get a job, get married.
mhm.
I already had the kid. Everybody knew that part. But get married, have more kids, and get a promotion on the job, and it all shifted for me too. but I had been in it for a little bit longer. It's a little bit harder to unlearn it once you're in it, right? And so I was really happy to see you making these steps and doing these, making these bold moves. And then you're just this very reflective, introspective person, and I've always admired that about you. And I saw it. So like I said, I've never seen anything that you've done is scattered or sporadic, and it's always been really, really calculated. And I do have to correct myself. I think I said earlier that you moved from Memphis to DC, and you were in.
Well, I did a lot of moving, so so you're not wrong. But it was Memphis to New York to Houston, and then 20 December. I moved during the whole pandemic. December 2020, I decided to move to DC. I knew I wanted to be back on the East Coast, and I actually did a road trip in October. We went through, me and my sister went through Atlanta, New Orleans, and then finally to DC. And so I was just looking around. I had a feeling that I was supposed to move to DC. Knew nothing of DC, besides the times that I had visited from New York and went to brunch and stuff. But other than that, I knew nothing about living in DC. And so got there on a road trip. Went to this one bar. It was a Black-owned bar called Mr. Braxton. And I was like, I really want to work for a Black-owned bar. And so one of the waiters was like, he was just talking to us, and he was like, hey, like, I'm leaving to go to Pittsburgh. And I was like, oh, my family's from Pittsburgh. Like, here are some spots or whatever. And my line sister was like, well, will y'all be hiring soon? And he was like, yeah, probably so. And so he gave me the owner's contact information. I emailed the owner and was like, hey, I'm moving there in November. Will you, are you hiring? And so we had a Zoom call, and I got hired.
You got a job.
Right? I got a job. And so my mom was like, so you really about to move to DC? And I was like, yeah, I got a job this time instead of like New York, where I didn't have no job. So this is better, right? And so, December, I packed up a truck and I drove from Houston to DC with all my things.
And again, big, bold, big, bold moves, but that's life, and that's living, and that's taking a chance. And Ciara, I admire that, and it's a choice, calculated choices, and it was just the same as when you moved before, right? You knew you could return if for whatever reason it didn't work. You would be okay, and I think that's a concept that we all need to embrace in life, though, is go after your dreams, take some chances, and
redefining also failure, because for me, when I left New York, I had made up in my mind that if I had to return, then I would be a failure. Like, people would say, oh, she couldn't do it or whatever. And when I went to Houston, left New York to go to Houston, I didn't have to leave, but that was, again, a calculated choice that I needed to make for me to regroup, to reset. And I'm so glad that I did it and did not look at myself as a failure. Mm-hmm. Instead, it was just like, this is another time for you to pivot. One thing that I have heard over, a few years or whatever, was like, it's not a failure, it's a plot twist in your story, right? and we do love a good plot twist, because regardless, it's going to get you to your destination of where you're supposed to be. And so, Houston was a plot twist for sure.
I like that. I never heard that. I've definitely always heard and said that in my life, I have made mistakes and done things that I didn't want, or didn't succeed at some things that I thought I wanted to accomplish, but I just looked at them as lessons. Now I like plot twist. That sounds good.
It's a plot twist, right? It's a plot twist, because you're still going to learn what you need to learn.
Yeah.
But it's a plot twist.
I absolutely like, oh, that's exciting. I didn't know that was about to happen.
Right? Or it's like, oh, that happened.
I didn't know I was going back to Houston. How cool.
Right? And it gave me time to like spend time with my parents. It gave me time to kind of apply some things that I was learning in therapy to work through, with my family, also to work through kind of like in isolation because I didn't know really anybody. And then my parents lived on the outskirts of Houston. Like we didn't live in the city. So it took about 45 minutes to get into the city. So I wasn't going out anyway. And so it was a moment of isolation to really like focus on myself and who was I?
Yeah.
What did I really want to do, regardless of what the outside world says, regardless of what I thought, I wanted, because at the end it wasn't, what I wanted. And so
Right.
it was a moment of isolation. And I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity, that my parents were blessed with the opportunity to have space for me. Not
I mean,
even just
yeah,
like
I think
holding space, but having physical space, having a bedroom for me to come back to. So yeah.
and I think I think that's a good thing, especially being a parent, that you acknowledge that, because that is a blessing and a benefit that you didn't have to have and they didn't have to give.
No.
So yes, acknowledging that and appreciating that is great. I think it's also great that you talked about therapy and how you not only went but you embraced it, and that's something we all can benefit from.
So for a year, I think like while in college, I kind of like wanted to go to therapy, but I was like, man, therapy is for people that really, really got a lot of stuff going on. And I don't have that much stuff going on. So I don't want to take away from somebody else being able to see a therapist.
Look at you being so unselfish.
Survey said that was a lie. Ciara needed to take her therapy and fast. But yeah, I am a huge advocate for therapy. Even when things aren't wrong, right? My therapist specialized in helping women specifically in transition. So if you were starting a new job, if you were moving to a different city, whatever the transition was, she was there to help you through it. That was just one of her great skill sets. She has so many. So I am a huge advocate for therapy. We're just talking with someone who you can relate to. My therapist is a Black woman, and I was super grateful to be able to find her. And so we were able to connect on multiple levels, and she was able to help me see so much. And so if you have the time, if you can, please go to therapy. It is super important.
And I think that's really, really powerful, because we don't need to wait until something is wrong. And I've been doing a lot of research lately on trauma and adverse childhood experiences. ACEs is the term. And a lot of times who we are and the things that we do as adults is based on things that we experience in our childhood.
Yep.
Even if it's subconscious and we don't even remember. And so a lot of those things manifest in the decisions that we make in our lives and the limitations that we place on ourselves. And so anyway, I just think I agree with you, is because I go to therapy too. I think it's really powerful, and not enough people talk about it, I don't think. And I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So stigma tied to it is going away.
Absolutely.
The more we talk about it, the more that stigma goes away, and people can be helped, and people can have these very powerful, freeing conversations and change their lives and generations and all the people around them.
Exactly.
So Ciara, I love it. And you already know, because we do anyway. We can talk forever.
Yes.
We can talk forever. But I'm so excited though, and I really do admire you, because I could say, I think you said 2002. I don't remember what year it was, but I believe you were a sophomore or a junior in college.
Senior.
And were you
when you came?
At that time when you approached me, yeah.
And
I think I met you like this. You're my chapter soror. Got to reiterate that. Shout out, AKA Epsilon chapter. And I remember meeting you, and I was just immediately impressed by you. And then the fact that you took the initiative to reach out to me, which is another important lesson and point for young people to take a step. Don't be scared. Talk to people. And that's exactly what you did. And we have the relationship that we have today because of you making that one step. And I appreciate that. And now you are living your life and still figuring it out, just like I'm still figuring it out. But you're doing amazing things, and I admire and respect you for that. So we talked about overcoming obstacles, eliminating excuses, calculating choices. And that is the Solar Success System. When a person is able, in my belief, to learn how to do those three things, they can achieve so what success. And that's success in spite of any challenges they face, no matter what you go through. You can do those things. You can have success in your life. But Ciara, how do you define success for yourself? What is the meaning of success for you?
You know what? For me, I can kind of sum it up in one word. It's freedom. I think that's what success looks like to
That's
me.
my word too. That's the last word.
Is it? It truly is, and freedom, and just like being able to live life the way that you see it. But I think you also have to have some introspective, right? You have to really look within and see what that looks like for you, and not to be afraid to try different things, to take those leaps of faith, and to give yourself grace, when you are trying these different things. If they don't work out, there will be plot twists along the journey, and that's okay, because again, those are meant for your journey and for your story. And so yeah, if I had to sum it up into one word, success looks like freedom to me.
And you are being super successful right now, because I'm looking at you right now in Mexico, right?
I'm in Mexico at the moment. Again, living out of the country has always been something that was on my heart. I remember being in high school singing that I would live in New York and I would live in Spain. Had never been to either of those places. And since I had New York under my belt, I was like, well, let me try something else. And so I did want to go to Spain, but of course, due to COVID, that was a no.
For now.
But ended up for now, and ended up coming to Mexico, and it has been great. It has been eye-opening, to say the least. And I'm still on this journey, of course, with entrepreneurship and being in a foreign country. It's different. And so hopefully this time next year, I'll have more to that story. It's still developing.
You see me looking, I'm like, oh, I have so many more questions, so much more to talk about. That's just for us. But this is awesome. And I applaud you again for each step of the journey, and for using the word freedom. I promise it's the same word. I was just asked this question. I've been asking this question, but somebody turned and asked me. And I said, that's my best definition. And that I feel most successful now. Like, I've made a lot of money in my career and I've had really cool jobs. But I feel most successful when my time is mine, and when I can live and do what I want to do when I want to do it. And so I love seeing you at that place, like a whole decade, a little bit more than a decade before I got to that place. And I love it. Oh, one last question, Ciara. One last question. What advice, and I know you have a lot, because like I said, I witnessed you learning and growing and striving to learn and striving to grow. Like, not just, we're going to learn and grow generally as we live, but you are deliberate about learning and growing, and I've watched it. So I know you have a lot of advice. But what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who is experiencing some obstacles, but they want to have success too? However they define success for themselves, what's one piece of advice you would give?
Oh man, I would say, and this is a quote that I live by, is be afraid, but do it anyway. Like, whatever it is, like, the unknown is unpredictable, right? And there can be some fear attached to that, because you don't know what's going to happen. But instead of it looking at like, oh, what's going to happen to me, you could look at it as, oh, what's going to happen to me? Like, you could change your perspective, right, on that. So my advice is definitely be afraid and do it anyway. And have faith in yourself that it can be done. And if it can, then that's a plot twist, and that there's something else better coming along. So that would be my advice.
I love it. And that's one thing I've said too all along: do it scared. And And that's great advice. Thank you, Ciara. I love you, girl, and I can't wait to
I
catch up
love you
more.
too. Thank you so much for
Keep
having
living your
me.
best life, girl. Keep living your best life. I didn't mean to cut you off. What did you say?
No, I was saying thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a part of this. I really am. So thank you.
You have been a part of this since it was a thing. And I'm really, really excited to share your story. And I look forward to your story continue to grow and us continue to stay connected too. You're an inspiration.
Absolutely.
You're really an inspiration, Ciara. And I'm super proud of you.
Thank you
Love
so
you, girl.
much. I love you too.